Are you ready?
Here we go. 3.14.
This man has had 1 week to learn and practice 100 numbers in sequence. And now he has to perform it in front of millions to win $25,000.
28034.
The big moment, Saturday, 8, 7 Central on ABC.
World News Now Sports, brought to you by Imodium AD.
Yesterday morning, we showed you a good reason why mothers should not let their babies grow up to play in the NHL. Here's another. The Senators' Matthew Barnaby took one in his chops and lost his teeth. Ouch, ouch. You can see him dropping out. Pittsburgh and Ottawa tied at 3, and somebody please get this man a dentist. Oh. In the NBA, the Toronto Raptors have matched their win total from last season, and it took them just 30 games. Rookie invincible Vince Carter led Toronto with 31 points and 11 rebounds. Rick Smits had a chance to win it for Indiana, but his jumper didn't fall. The Raptors held on 88-87. Houston's Hakeem Olajuwon scored in his 25,000th career point last night, helping the Rockets beat the Jazz 88-87. ESPN's David Aldridge has some other news around the NBA. Let's take a look.
Minnesota may have done something very smart by picking up Dennis Scott, who clashed in New York with coach Jeff Van Gundy. Their different styles came to a head after the Knicks lost badly at Chicago on March 12th. On the plane ride back, Scott says Van Gundy blew up at him because he and Latrell Sprewell were laughing in the players section. The next day, Scott says that management told him he was a bad influence on Sprewell and was released. Scott confirms that he doesn't take losses as hard as New York's veterans, but said that he can't dwell on defeats like Van Gundy, who he called a, quote, broken down Beetlejuice, close quote, after losses. Van Gundy replied that he wouldn't knock Scott because he played for him. But let's face it, Van Gundy said, if I thought he could help our team, we wouldn't have cut him.
At least one Grizzlies coach isn't at all surprised that Bryant Reeves had to undergo arthroscopic knee surgery last week. Knee problems have plagued Reeves throughout his career, in part because he insists on coming to camp out of shape. Grizzlies coaches then have to run him ragged to lose the extra pounds. This year, 40 extra pounds, and the additional pounding takes its toll. The bad part is that it always comes just as Reeves is starting to provide Vancouver with an inside presence. Who would have ever thought the words Vernon Maxwell and steadying influence would be used in the same sentence? Yet Maxwell has helped the Kings' young players like Jason Williams deal with the ups and downs of the NBA. Maxwell acknowledges he's trying to extend his career by fitting in more. I don't mind not starting, Maxwell says, but I love being out there when it counts. And as evidenced by his game-tying three-pointer against the Lakers last week, Mad Max can still come out from time to time. On the NBA Beat, I'm David Aldridge, ESPN.
I still can't get over the hockey player losing his
yuck.
teeth. Oh, shouldn't they be wearing those teeth guards?
Yeah,
Oh.
not good.
That's sports for this half hour.
When we come back, we're going to the movies.
ABC's World News Now will continue after this from our ABC stations.
Tired of being turned down? Call 1-800-APPROVED. We can get you the auto financing you need today. Our staff specializes in helping good people just like you reestablish your credit and get back behind the wheel where you belong. Call 1-800-APPROVED 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have a tremendous selection of cars, trucks, vans, and sports utilities, and millions to lend to people who thought affordable financing was impossible. We can get you financed, regardless of your credit history. 1-800-APPROVED. Call today. Drive tomorrow.
The largest Oriental rug collection on the West Coast is at Northwest Rugs. And with over 10,000 rugs in stock, our annual anniversary sale is the biggest and best of its type, with greater variety than ever before. Why settle for anything less? At Northwest Rugs, you'll find every type and style imaginable, from nouveau antique to hook rugs, all at anniversary sale pricing. Our stores are stacked high with the handcrafted and machine-made rugs you're looking for. Come to our sale. You won't be disappointed. Northwest Rugs, we put the world at your feet. Wilsonville, Tigard, and Jansen Beach.
Here are some of the stories we're following this morning. Yugoslavia says it plans to put 3 captured American soldiers on trial today. The Pentagon says a trial would be illegal because the men are prisoners of war. The truck driver involved in last month's fatal train collision in Illinois will lose his commercial driver's license for 2 months because of an old traffic violation. And forecasters are predicting this year's Atlantic hurricane season could be as violent and deadly as last year's storms. The 1998 hurricane season was the region's deadliest this century, killing more than 12,000 people.
You know, some weekends there's no movie that screams out, this is the movie with something for everyone. Sometimes you just have to choose your movie based on what you want to see, and not much hope for much more than that. What we want to see right now, though, is our own Leah Rosen giving us an idea of what you will be seeing this weekend at the movie theaters. So, what do you got?
You've got choices this weekend. Choices, and that choices are always good. You've got, you're a sci-fi fan?
Uh-huh.
If you're a sci-fi fan, I like this movie. It's called The Matrix. And
This
it has
is the Keanu Reeves one?
Keanu Reeves. It opened on Wednesday, so it's out there now. This is one of those movies, afterwards you go, what was that about? but while you're there, you really have a good time, partly because the movie looks so good. It's got some cockamamie plot about, you know, an alternate world. They've got us in the Matrix that isn't a real world, and they're trying to fool us. And Lawrence Fishburne sort of leads this band of computer rebel guerrillas who are fighting the Matrix. But let's see the clip, because what this movie's really about is the way it looks and the special effects.
Gotcha.
So let's take a look. This is Keanu Reeves fighting the bad guys.
Trinity! Help!
Now that's cool, isn't that? As he's dodging the bullets.
That's really cool.
That's, you watch this movie, you keep going, that's cool, that's cool. It's got this plot, I mean, it has something to do with Alice in Wonderland crossed with the Jesus story. I mean, you'll be seeing symbolism everywhere.
You're kidding, right?
No, not really. You can happily ignore it. This film is directed by the Wachowski brothers, who directed Bound, which was a little sort of independent hit a couple years ago. And these guys have style. So, science fiction film, it goes on a little too long. Afterwards, you're not going to remember a whole lot about it, but it's fun while you're in the theater.
Form over function, I take it?
That would be very good, Juju.
A little architecture metaphor.
Consult with me next time I'm writing the review. Now, if you're not a sci-fi fan, if you're a teenager or you like teen movies, then your choice this weekend would be 10 Things I Hate About You.
Aha.
Now, 10 Things I Hate About You is really The Taming of the Shrew, plunked down in a contemporary American high school.
More Shakespeare. Hollywood loves Shakespeare.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Ba-dum-bum.
But nowhere in the credits of the movie will you see William Shakespeare given a credit.
Really?
He's not listed
Not even
anywhere.
story based on?
Not even story based by or additional dialogue or any of those things, so that's sort of amusing. Basically, it's a teenage film. It doesn't quite transcend being a teenage film. In the clip we're going to see, our Catherine character, now called Kat, our Petruchio, now called Peter, are meeting in a music club. So this is Julia Stiles and Heath Ledger.
You know, these guys are no Bikini Kill or the Raincoats. They're not bad.
You know who the Raincoats are.
Why, don't you? I was watching you out there before. I've never seen you look so sexy. Come to Boogie's party with me.
You never give up, do you?
Was that a yes?
No.
Well, then was that a no?
No.
I'll say 9:30 then.
It never quite transcends teen concerns. This is not Clueless. You know, there is the prom scene, which I can't say I've ever seen in a previous production of Taming of the Shrew. So, good acting by Julia Stiles. There's some fun dialogue, but in the end, it's a teenage movie. And if you're past a certain age, who really cares? Next one is the adult movie.
Gotcha.
So, drop the teenagers off at 10 Things I Hate About You. As an adult, go see a little independent film called A Walk on the Moon.
Oh, right.
This is a movie set in 1969, the same summer that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon and that there was Woodstock. And it's a somewhat frustrated housewife out in the Catskills. She's in the Catskills all summer with her kids. The husband comes there every weekend. It's Diane Lane, who we've seen as a teenage actress. She's been around for 20 years, but boy, does she cut loose here.
Really?
Really good. You know, one of those sort of breakout performances. Clip we're going to see, right. Diane Lane plays the housewife. Liev Schreiber, her husband, has just come up for the weekend. So let's take a look.
Okay.
I have waited all week for this moment.
Hey, where you going?
Out!
Where's my kiss?
I have a date, Daddy.
A date?
Ross is taking me to the Pines. There's a rock band there.
Who's Ross? I missed one weekend already. There's a Ross?
He's a nice boy.
How old is he?
16, I think.
Pearl. Oh, God, Pearl. There is no such thing as a nice 16-year-old boy.
Now, two interesting things. The daughter who ran off there is played by Anna Paquin, who was the kid in the piano. And the film's directed and well-directed by Tony Goldwyn, the actor from Ghost and Kiss the Girls.
Right.
Now, this weekend, last and certainly least, we would have the remake of The Out-of-Towners with Goldie Hawn and Steve Martin remaking the 1970 Jack Lemmon, Sandy Dennis film, and it's just sort of uninspired. They're kind of trying to do this aging baby boomer, vaguely dissatisfied middle-age kind of theme.
It's weird. I saw the trailer, and you gotta ask yourself, like, Goldie Hawn, Steve Martin, what's not to like? And yet it didn't. The trailer felt that.
Labored would be the word for this film. You just sort of watch chase after chase and routine after routine. There are a few laughs, a few honest laughs, but really, this thing is straight to television.
So we should see Walk on the Moon, it sounds like.
You should see Walk in the Moon. You should see Matrix. Matrix is a guilty pleasure.
Really?
Guilty pleasure.
Leo Rosen, I love it when you suggest guilty pleasures. Thanks for watching. You're watching World News Now. Stay with us.
Man, the first time I looked at a picture of me, I was like, wow, Wayne, what happened? I was fat. I lost over 50 pounds on a Slim Fast plan. I finally found something that worked for me. It's easy. It tastes great. Once I lost the weight, my energy skyrocketed right through the roof. It makes you feel good after working out.
23 vitamins and minerals, protein, calcium, fiber, all the balanced nutrition like a healthy meal.
I look at life totally different now.
Slim Fast, every day. Balanced nutrition for a healthy life.
Anybody can do it if I can do it.
But I wasn't gone long.
Your husband was right here?
I went to check the tickets.
Bingo.
What?
Have you checked the Chili Dog Express?
Oh, no. Hot dogs give Jack indigestion and heartburn.
Not this time.
What is it?
Looks like the remains of the minty fresh Pepsid AC chewable.
Chewable?
Now the first chewable that stops heartburn before it starts. Great tasting Pepsid AC chewables.
Jack?
Start living heartburn free with new Pepsid AC chewables.
Got a clog? You want the best clog remover? Is it Liquid Plumber or Drano? They're all the same, right? Actually, one works faster than the other, which is nice. In fact, it's twice as fast, which is incredible. Professional strength Liquid Plumber Clog Remover.
Whoa.
Yes, there is a best.
Okay, babe, here we go. Now, move over to the right. No, the other way, my right. A little more. A little more. Perfect.
How was it?
Beautiful.
If you think the Cavalier looks good, wait till you know it can go through 100,000 miles before its first scheduled tune-up. Chevy Cavalier. The more you know, the better it looks. Genuine Chevrolet.
No one looks at the markets with a more insightful eye than Barron's, offering timely coverage of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, everything investors need to stay informed. Subscribe now and you'll also receive this Barron's Stock Evaluator free. It lets your computer help you turn money into wealth. Get 13 weeks of Barron's and the Stock Evaluator, all for only $39. Call now toll-free, 800-737-5700. That's 800-737-5700.
One of the effects television has had on modern-day warfare is to turn politicians, to some degree, into hostages of hostage takers. That's why 3 captured soldiers are big news now, while they would barely merit a mention in some of history's previous conflicts. To illuminate the impact hostage-taking has had recently, here's ABC's John Cochran.
Pictures of Americans in captivity have always had a profound effect on public opinion, whether a civilian in Lebanon or an army officer in Somalia. And that can lead to drastic changes in policy.
Temptation, again, is to make it an obsession, and you can't allow that to happen because it will suddenly begin to drive your policy in ways that are very dangerous.
The classic example of obsession was the Iranian takeover of the American embassy in Tehran 20 years ago.
The Iran crisis. America held hostage.
Americans came to regard President Jimmy Carter as paralyzed, impotent. He responded by switching from negotiations to a rescue attempt which ended in disaster. Then Carter came under enormous pressure to bomb the heart of Tehran, to level the city. Some aides warned him the only way to win re-election was to take extreme action.
Will that get the hostages released? And somebody said, no, but the American people will feel better. He said, I can't do that.
Ronald Reagan had to deal with other hostages kidnapped by Muslim extremists in Lebanon. Once again, there was pressure from the public. Reagan himself felt deep compassion for the hostages. So he secretly changed American policy, selling arms to an old enemy, Iran, in return for their help, even though he always denied it.
The United States has not swapped boatloads of plane loads of American weapons for the return of American hostages, and we will not.
Now that 3 Americans have been captured by the Serbs, the question again is, what should an American president do about it? Should the president expand military action in an attempt to force release of the POWs, or should he seek a deal with the Serbs? During the Vietnam War, Senator John McCain was held captive for 5.5 years. He said the president should, in effect, do nothing.
I do not believe that this very sad incident should influence our policy towards the prosecution of this conflict.
Americans are not patient when their countrymen are taken prisoner. That is hard on presidents, and some resist the pressure better than others. John Cochran, ABC News, Washington.
That's the news for this half hour. Stay tuned for more news from ABC.
OSU, our hats are off to you. In the Marshall family, there's this very long tradition with Oregon State. Started back in 1974 and ran for 16 years until 1990. All 7 of us graduated from there. I can remember when my last brother graduated in 1990, my dad pointing back at the Memorial Union, which was behind him, and saying, "Kids, I feel like I own part of that building." And in many ways, he really did.
Kathy Marshall, weeknights at 5 and 11 on Channel 2 News.
Before anyone you know moves to Portland, they should take the first step. KATU's First Step to Portland and Vicinity. This 30-minute video is the easy way to compare lifestyles in different areas of Portland, of homes and apartment styles, school districts, commutes, recreation, crime data, and more. Step 1 to Portland is sponsored by these fine companies and available by calling 1-888-STEP1-FOR-YOU.
Empower yourself to do good things. Try some of these.
Channel 2 believes events like these build strong, powerful, passionate communities. Celebrate and count down with us to the year 2000.
Brought to you by your local tire factory dealer and KATU, the power of 2000.
The largest Oriental rug collection on the West Coast is at Northwest Rugs. And with over 10,000 rugs in stock, our annual anniversary sale is the biggest and best of its type, with greater variety than ever before. Why settle for anything less? At Northwest Rugs, you'll find every type and style imaginable, from nouveau antique to hook rugs, fall and anniversary sale pricing. Our stores are stacked high with the handcrafted and machine-made rugs you're looking for. Come to our sale. You won't be disappointed. Northwest Rugs. We put the world at your feet. Wilsonville Tigard and Jansen Beach.
An interview with Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn today at 9.
The U.S. soldiers held in Yugoslavia await a possible military trial.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Now.
The Pentagon says the GIs are prisoners of war and should not be tried. Hello from New York, I'm Farai Chidea.
And I'm Juju Chang. Thanks for joining us this Friday morning. Also coming up this half hour, the NFL makes plans for millions of football fans, and voices the Serbs tried to silence speak from Belgrade. But we begin with the trial and error, terror in the Balkans.
The 3 American soldiers in Serb custody could face trial today in a Yugoslav military court. The Pentagon is calling them prisoners of war while it investigates where along the Kosovo-Macedonia border they were captured. Elsewhere along Kosovo's border, tens of thousands of ethnic Albanians are in desperate condition. Here's ABC's Lucretia Quinn.
In a scene frighteningly reminiscent of World War II, ethnic Albanians in Pristina are being herded onto trains and shipped to the borders. According to monitors for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, what you don't see in these Serb-controlled pictures are the masked men forcing people onto the trains at gunpoint. Men NATO believes may be working for this man, Željko Ražnatović, better known as Arkan, leader of the Serb paramilitaries and wanted by the UN for war crimes.
People are simply running away from the bombing. People are simply running away because you're bombing them 24 hours day and night.
Arkan also claims the captured U.S. soldiers are in safe hands.
The Yugoslav army is keeping them. They will be treated as under the convention, Geneva Convention. They will well be treated, don't you worry. The marks you saw on the soldier is because he was a brave soldier. He didn't want to surrender. That's all. It's simple as that.
But it is not that simple. The very appearance of these American soldiers on Serbian television violates the Geneva Convention. And now there are reports they are to be put on trial, another violation of international law.
Their use for propaganda is a direct contravention of the Geneva Convention. We hold President Milosevic responsible.
In what NATO calls more propaganda, Ibrahim Rugova, the Kosovo-Albanian leader who was said to be in hiding, suddenly appeared on Serbian TV reportedly agreeing with Milosevic to pursue a peaceful solution. This as his people flee for their lives, bringing to mind the old saying, the first casualty of war is truth. Lucretia Quinn, ABC News, London.
President Clinton will meet with his advisors and international aid officials this morning to discuss the growing refugee crisis in the Balkans and the U.S. response to it. Yesterday, Mr. Clinton spoke to troops and their families at the Norfolk Naval Base in Virginia. Here's ABC's Sam Donaldson.
President Clinton, speaking to families of service personnel gathered in a large hangar, issued a stern warning to the Serbs against mistreating the captured U.S. servicemen.
There was absolutely no basis for them to be taken. There is no basis for them to be held. There is certainly no basis for them to be tried. President Milosevic should make no mistake. We will hold him and his government responsible for their safety and for their well-being.
Continuing to make the case for the NATO bombing campaign, Mr. Clinton asked the families to put themselves in the place of the Kosovar Albanians. Ask them to think how they would feel
if people came to your house in your village and said, pack up your belongings and go, we're going to burn your property records, we're going to burn your identity records. And if your husband or your son is of military service age, we might take him out behind the barn and shoot him dead, just because you have a different religion, just because you have a different ethnic background. Now that is what is at stake here. We cannot do everything in the world, but we must do what we can.
But on that point of doing what we can,
Administration officials are not denying stories that Pentagon planners warned the president in advance that air power alone could not stop ethnic cleansing if the Serbs were determined to press on. Secretary of Defense Cohen bristled at the suggestion that going ahead anyway was illogical.
We understood what air power could and could not do. We had to consider whether or not we could sit on the sidelines and watch indifferently while 40,000 troops went on a rampage through Kosovo, while NATO took no action whatsoever. We believe we're doing the right thing.
There is no change in policy. Still no intention to send ground troops, just an escalating air bombardment for as long as it takes. And the hope here that the American public will continue to support a policy that the president knew going in might not fully be able to achieve its goal. Sam Donaldson, ABC News, Washington.
Bad weather continues to hamper the NATO air campaign, but it is expected to clear this weekend. Despite the cloud cover, NATO planes continue to take off, and the Serbian news agency reported several missile strikes in southern Serbia today after a lull in bombing overnight. Meanwhile, international relief organizations are rushing to get aid to the 180,000 refugees from Kosovo. AmeriCares is airlifting medical supplies into Macedonia, and the French are flying in tons of food and medicine. The Italians plan to ship in a mobile hospital. Later this half hour, we'll take some of the questions you've been posting on the World News Now message board at abcnews.com.
In other news, a Korean air pilot narrowly averted a collision at Chicago's O'Hare Airport yesterday. An Air China cargo plane accidentally taxied onto the same runway as the Korean 747 carrying 362 people. The Korean air pilot managed to pull up sharply just as he was taking off, missing the other plane by less than 100 feet. In Illinois, the truck driver involved in last month's deadly train crash is losing his commercial license for 2 months. John Stokes' truck driving privileges will be suspended for a previous traffic violation, not because of the train accident. Stokes had not been charged in connection with the crash, which, as you know, left 11 people dead.
It looks like things are going to become increasingly difficult for the U.S. In terms of negotiating what steps to take and how unilaterally to take them. I think what's going to be very interesting here is to see how the European community responds to the crisis in Kosovo, with many Americans saying they should bear more brunt of the providing troops and things like that.
John McWethy was saying that of the airstrikes that the aerial bombardment, 90% of the airstrikes come from the U.S. So the question of how do we burden share and whether or not, if the issue of ground troops comes up, what the appetite for it would be.
Absolutely. Now we have to take a look at the weather. A stubborn spring storm will blanket an area from the northern Great Lakes to the central Rockies with snow and rain again today. Mild temperatures in most areas except the northern plains, where it will drop into the 20s. Here's the National Temperature Index plus local forecast and a visit with some well-fed pandas at the San Diego Zoo.
You're nobody till somebody loves you. You're nobody till somebody cares. You may be king, you may
World News Now weather, brought to you by Tums.
And it's gold, but gold won't bring you happiness and your...
Gee, that oatmeal was little. Yeah. You done with those sausages? You done with them hash browns? Sure. You need some help with that bacon? How did I get heartburn? All I had was oatmeal. Got any Mylanta?
Are you kidding? Aluminum and magnesium? You want Tums. Tums has calcium.
Tums calcium knocks out heartburn fast, then goes to your bones to help keep them stronger, longer.
How about a bag of donuts for the road?
How about a bottle of Tums?
New CompuServe 2000.
Now just $9.95.
Fast 56K connections.
Just $9.95.
Easier email.
Just $9.95.
Serious information.
Just $9.95.
New CompuServe 2000.
Just $9.95.
A value leader in internet access.
Call toll free today.
I was getting married. I didn't want to be a fat bride. I lost 39 pounds on the Slim Fast plan. I've kept it off for 3 years, and I still fit into my wedding dress. I feel on top of the world. I take care of myself. I eat right, and I have Slim Fast for lunch every day. It's delicious. It helps keep me looking like this.
23 vitamins and minerals, protein, calcium, fiber, all the balanced nutrition like a healthy meal.
I feel wonderful.
Slim Fast every day. Balanced nutrition for a healthy life.
I did it. You can do it.
Honey, you got the Power of Pine Sol for floors. Now you can get it to go. The Power of Pine Sol in a spray. Lemon Fresh Pine Sol Cleaner and antibacterial spray. Goes everywhere. Like here. Woo! Pine Sol outpowers dirt and germs. And here, the Power of Pine Sol does it again. And again. Bye-bye, grease. Mmm, smells like fresh cut lemons. Remember the name, honey? Lemon Fresh Pine Sol Spray. Power of Pine Sol to go.
Have you outgrown your current position or find yourself unemployed? Then it's time to look in the National Business Employment Weekly. You'll find top jobs with top companies and advice on landing them.
Order 6 issues of the National Business Employment Weekly now for only $19, a special introductory offer. Look in the National Business Employment Weekly. You'll never know what you'll find. To subscribe, call 800-272-2000. That's 800-272-2000.
New CompuServe 2000.
Now just $9.95.
Fast 56K connections.
Just $9.95.
Easier email.
Just $9.95.
Serious information.
Just $9.95.
New CompuServe 2000.
Just $9.95.
A value leader in internet access.
Call toll free today.
The Boston Bruins hold the final Eastern Conference playoff spot, and last night they improved their chances for postseason action. The Bruins beat Montreal 3-2. They are now 7 points ahead of the Florida Panthers and New York Rangers. In the NCAA hockey tournament, Maine beat Boston College in overtime, 2-1. Maine will play New Hampshire in the national championship game on Sunday. Well, it appears that Jim Herrick has played an April Fool's joke. First, he took the head coaching job at Georgia on Wednesday. Then, he changed his mind early on Thursday and said he would stay at Rhode Island. Then, Herrick had another change of heart on Thursday evening and once again has decided to coach the Bulldogs. Major League Baseball doesn't kick off until next week, and already the new NFL schedule is out. The biggest question hanging over the league is whether or not Denver Broncos quarterback John Elway will retire. If he does come back, Week 1 will feature Elway against Miami and Dan Marino on Monday Night Football. Because of last season's ratings decline, Monday Night Football will return to its 9 p.m. Eastern kickoff. ESPN's first Sunday night game will feature the new generation of an old rivalry, the debut of the expansion Cleveland Browns at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now a look at the day's scores.
I had a mighty hard time on my way. I had a mighty hard time on my way. Mighty hard time, Lord, on my way. On my way, glory, hallelujah, on my way.
Just want to clarify, the NCAA hockey championship is on Saturday, not Sunday, so don't miss it. That's sports for this half hour.
When we come back, we'll get live updates from Belgrade and Macedonia.
ABC's World News Now will continue after this from our ABC stations.
I've been pretty obsessed with my weight for as long as I can remember.
I'd lose some, put it back on. I always felt like I was failing, and I knew it wasn't healthy.
Then I learned that just a 5 to 10% gradual weight reduction could have a significant impact.
Better health, lower blood pressure, and gradual weight loss helps.
Armed with reasonable expectations and professional help, getting the weight off and keeping it off is a realistic goal.
Tired of being turned down? Call 1-800-APPROVED.
We can get you the auto financing you need today. Our staff specializes in helping good people just like you reestablish your credit and get back behind the wheel where you belong. Call 1-800-APPROVED 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have a tremendous selection of cars, trucks, vans, and sports utilities, and millions to lend to people who thought affordable financing was impossible. We can get you financed, regardless of your credit history. 1-800-APPROVED. Call today. Drive tomorrow.
Here's some of the stories we're following this morning. President Clinton is warning Yugoslav President Milosevic to release the 3 captured American soldiers and drop plans to put them on trial. British and Irish leaders are trying to save the Northern Ireland peace plan agreed to last year on Good Friday. They are calling for rival paramilitary groups to surrender their weapons on what would become an all-Ireland holiday devoted to peace. Pope John Paul is also calling for a peaceful holiday and an Easter truce in Kosovo. As part of last night's Holy Thursday services, the Pope appealed again to both sides to end the violence.
One of the casualties of war is access to information. We have been getting much of our information from Clay Scott in Macedonia, who will be joining us to answer some of your questions. We will also be joined by Isa Zimberi, the director of the Kosova Information Center, which is at www.kosova.com. And we are hopefully going to be joined by the general manager of an independent radio station, which was taken off the air in Belgrade. But you can access that at www.b92.net. Clay, you with us?
Yes, good morning. Yes.
Could you give us an update on the situation with the refugees?
Yes, they are continuing to stream over by the thousands, unfortunately. There's a disturbing new development the last couple days in which trainloads of Kosovar refugees are arriving from the capital, Pristina. They are being, according to some accounts, forcibly put on the trains, which are then locked. When they arrive at the Macedonian border, they're dumped out. People are stripped of their money, their passports, and shoved across the border. All of these people have horrible stories to tell of beatings, arson, shootings, and much worse even.
Clay, we understand that there have been casualties aboard those trains, that people have been packed on so tightly that in fact 2 people died.
Yes, people have died in that way. Many more people have died coming across the mountains. I've talked to refugees who spent days in the mountains without fire, without food, without sufficient clothing. And in some cases, the Macedonian government has been very reluctant to let people in, perhaps understandably because the numbers are so large. But the result is that this is even adding even more to what these people have suffered.
Clay, what kind of aid are relief agencies able to bring to the people that you're talking about, the people who are camped out?
The aid agencies are doing their best, but they're sort of a no man's land, a couple of kilometers, the border region between Macedonia and Kosovo that many agencies are not able to reach, and these are the people who are suffering most. Once the people actually get into Macedonia, they are dealt with. They are given medical care, food, and whatnot. And also I have to say that the local ethnic Albanian community in Macedonia has taken a lot of the burden for taking care of their brethren from Kosovo. Many of these people, many of the local Albanians have relatives in Kosovo, and even those who don't are doing their best to take them in.
Clay, let's switch topics for just 1 second before we go on to Isa. At this point, we saw your World News Tonight piece where you went out on the border between Macedonia and Kosovo where those 3 soldiers were captured by the Serbs. What can you tell us about that area?
What struck me is that it's not entirely clear where the border is there. It's a mountainous region, very rugged. The border is not really marked clearly. In fact, the locals we spoke to weren't even sure, weren't even exactly able to point it out. This is relevant because there's been some controversy about whether the soldiers were captured in Macedonian territory or in Serbian territory. It might be a moot point because that's an area it's not well marked, as I said. It's not heavily defended. The NATO forces and the Serb forces are really quite close together, and it's possible, I suppose, that the soldiers strayed into Serbian territory by accident or vice versa.
Clay, we're going to bring in Isa Zemberi from the Kosovo Information Center. Mr. Zemberi, you're joining us from London. What is your perception of the effectiveness of the NATO action thus far?
Well, I think NATO thus far has achieved its aim by reducing the military capability of Serbia. However, as we all know, NATO hasn't been able to tackle the means that the Serbian military use against the Albanians. That was, we were hoping that that would begin in phase 2, but it seems that NATO pilots were unlucky with the weather. And this only shows that the Serbian side is lucky again, because at least they face an opponent with a human face which wants to avoid civilian casualties, which is exactly what the Serbian side is targeting in Kosovo.
Well, speaking of civilian casualties, Mr. Zemberi, we have questions that we've been taking on the ABC News message board. One of them says, to what extent were the search and kill missions, the Serb onslaught, being conducted before the NATO strikes began?
Can you repeat that, please?
The question from one of our viewers was, to what extent were these search and kill missions, the so-called Serb onslaught against civilians in the Kosovo region, to what extent were they being conducted before the NATO airstrikes actually began?
Oh, this is a result of a detailed plan which was carefully prepared weeks before it started. However, we can link it back to the summer last year, when they started a scorched earth policy, first shelling Albanians out of their homes, then looting their property and burning their homes. Now we can see that the plan was detailed, because they went on even then to kill their livestock as well as burn their crops. And this was all done so that they wouldn't have food or anything, or even homes to go back to. But closer to this offensive, while the peace negotiations were going on in Rambouillet and Paris, they never stopped piling up troops. And it was in fact exactly, or the very day when the Albanian delegation signed the agreement that the offensive started.
Mr. Zemberi, we also have another question from one of our viewers. It is, why aren't we in Tibet, Africa, or India? How do you answer the prioritization of different human rights emergencies around the world?
Well, one should never say that if we have failed to be somewhere when there was a problem, we shouldn't be now in Kosovo to try and solve a problem. What we see in Kosovo now is purely a genocide going on. And I think even according to international law, genocide must not only be stopped, but also punished.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zemberi. Your organization is at www.kosova.com. We'll be back.
My heart is crying, crying. Lonely teardrops. My pillows never dry.
Do you remember classic rhythm and blues? Presenting the Rhythm and Blues Collection. 22 classics.
Try me, try me, try me.
You'll hear legends like James Brown, Jackie Wilson, and Lloyd Price.
I was standing on the corner when I heard my bulldog bark.
Get the Rhythm and Blues Collection for just $12.99. Plus, order now with your credit card and get a free bonus album featuring Ray Charles.
Tell your mama, tell your pa, I'm gonna send you back to Arkansas. Oh,
That's two great albums for just $12.99.
He don't love you like I love you. night are falling. It's twilight time. Out of the mist.
Then audition other rhythm and blues albums. Satisfaction is guaranteed.
I wanna walk you home.
So call now with your credit card and get 2 rhythm and blues albums for just $12.99.
That is why. I love you so. That is why. I love you so. Don't you know, baby? I love you so. Yeah. I want the world to know.
To order Rhythm and Blues, call 1-800-814-0066. That's 1-800-814-0066. Use your credit card and receive your free bonus album. Or send $12.99 plus $3.95 shipping and handling to Rhythm and Blues, Department 2, Richmond, Virginia. Call now, 1-800-814-0066.
I was getting married. I didn't want to be a fat bride. I lost 39 pounds on the Slim Fast plan. I've kept it off for 3 years, and I still fit into my wedding dress. I feel on top of the world. I take care of myself. I eat right, and I have Slim Fast for lunch every day. It's delicious. It helps keep me looking like this.
23 vitamins and minerals, protein, calcium, fiber, all the balanced nutrition like a healthy meal.
I feel wonderful.
Slim Fast every day. Balanced nutrition for a healthy life.
I did it. You can do it.
We're continuing our message board conversation live with Clay Scott, who's in Macedonia. Clay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. We just wanted to continue the message board questions that seem to be coming in. One person seemed to indicate that American blood should not be shed in a protracted ground war. Is there a growing sense there that that's the only way to resolve the situation that Milosevic has dug in his heels?
Yes, there is, unfortunately. Especially relevant, I suppose, is the opinion of the Kosovar Albanian refugees coming over. Interestingly, none of them I have talked to have blamed NATO for exacerbating what's being done to them. On the other hand, they almost all say it's not going to end until NATO gets in there on the ground. They're really pleading for NATO to get in and stop the genocide before there's nothing left of their homeland.
Clay, I wanted to ask you, the reality of the matter is that so many, perhaps the majority of the Kosovar Albanians have actually left the country at this point. What sort of hurdles are going to have to be overcome to even relocate this population back to their homes?
Extraordinary hurdles. In most cases, entire villages have been destroyed, crops. If and when people go back to Kosovo, they will be rebuilding their country from the ground up. So the hurdles they would have to overcome are really extraordinary. At the same time, most of the refugees I'm talking to say that that's what they hope will happen. Nobody I've talked to is resigned to spending the rest of his or her life in a refugee camp or in a foreign country.
Clay, another person on our message board is saying this is not an American war, this is not a NATO war, this is a war between the Serbian people and the local population there. Do you get the sense, talking to the refugees, that this is an intervention that they are wanting, that they desire?
They absolutely want it. They are desperate for it. And I would say that it is not a war between, it's not a civil war. It's really, from what I've observed, it's really genocide. It reminds me very much of what I observed in Bosnia there a few years ago. It's not a matter of two equal armies fighting it out, but rather soldiers and paramilitary groups fighting civilians.
Clay Scott, thanks for pulling out your reporter's notebook. Thanks for joining us live. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Empower yourself to do good things. Try some of these.
Channel 2 believes events like these build strong, powerful, passionate communities. Celebrate and count down with us to the year 2000.
Brought to you by your local tire factory dealer and KATU, the power of 2000.
The largest Oriental rug collection on the West Coast is at Northwest Rugs. And with over 10,000 rugs in stock, our annual anniversary sale is the biggest and best of its type, with greater variety than ever before. Why settle for anything less? At Northwest Rugs, you'll find every type and style imaginable, from nouveau antique to hook rugs, all at anniversary sale pricing. Our stores are stacked high with the handcrafted and machine-made rugs you're looking for. Come to our sale. You won't be disappointed. Northwest Rugs. We put the world at your feet. Wilsonville, Tigard, and Jansen Beach.
Hey, Ellen, want a hit?
Want to smoke a joint before trying this on?
Here you go, Ellen. You want to get high? We got some great Thai stick in the back.
Smoke. Smoke. Kind buds. Sensi. You're gonna love this stuff. It'll get you really high.
John Marlar and Kathy Marshall, weeknights on Channel 2 News.
Time for weather on the hour, the 5-day forecast from the Channel 2 Weather Center. 60 degrees on your Friday under mostly sunny skies. Rain moves in Friday night and through Saturday. Cool sprinkles, 53. Easter Sunday at this point looks to be dry with some clouds around and also some peaks of sunshine. Daylight savings time does begin, spring forward. Monday and Tuesday back to relatively cool and relatively wet stuff. It's been meteorologist Rob Marciano with your weather on the hour every hour on the Power of 2.
Chris is a very special American and an incredibly proud soldier, and we're very proud of him.
Prayers and yellow ribbons for the safe return of 3 captured American soldiers.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Now.
The Pentagon says the soldiers are prisoners of war. Yugoslavia says it will put them on trial. Hello from New York, I'm Juju Chang.
And I'm Farai Chidea. Also ahead this half hour, the massive relief effort underway for Kosovo's refugees and the crisis as seen on Serbian TV. First, more on the Americans being held captive. The United States takes care of its own. That is President Clinton's warning to Yugoslavia as it apparently plans to put 3 captured U.S. soldiers on trial today. The Pentagon says it is outraged by Serb plans to try the Americans. It says the men must be treated humanely or immediately released. Here's ABC's Monica Schumann.
The 3 American soldiers paraded on Serb television are now characterized by the U.S. as prisoners of war.
We assert that they are covered by the Geneva Convention, which of course gives them a series of internationally recognized protections.
This is the area where the 3 soldiers separated from a convoy of Border Patrol units reported they were under fire, trapped, and taken captive. Just days ago, a Stars and Stripes photographer took these pictures of the same 3 soldiers on patrol in the same area where they came under attack.
They were, very professional. I mean, these are young professional soldiers. I mean, they didn't take any open risks.
U.S. military officials are now investigating whether the soldiers inadvertently crossed the border.
There is no basis for their detention, and under the Geneva Convention, to subject them to some phony trial about called a court-martial is just ridiculous.
President Clinton, visiting military personnel and families at Norfolk Naval Air Station, called for the soldiers' immediate release.
President Milosevic should make no mistake. We will hold him and his government responsible for their safety and for their well-being.
Families of the captured Americans say the president's speech gave them hope. They describe soldiers who deserve nothing less than their safe return.
Chris is a very special American and an incredibly proud soldier, and we're very proud of him.
With 3 Americans in captivity, the U.S. is beefing up its forces, including the addition of 3 ships capable of firing Tomahawk cruise missiles. The Pentagon also says it's adding 12 more stealth fighters, bringing the total number of U.S. aircraft in the region to 220. Monica Schumann, ABC News, Washington.
It is an ill-defined border that separates Kosovo and Macedonia. ABC's Clay Scott visited the area where the 3 soldiers were captured. He joins us now from the Macedonian capital. Clay, could you please tell us what the latest intelligence is on whether there was a possibility these soldiers were actually in Yugoslav territory?
It's very difficult to say. I spent some time at the area where they were captured. It's almost impossible to say exactly where the border lies. In fact, I talked to local villagers, and many of them were in the dark about it. It's an area where both Serb forces and NATO troops are present, very close together. It's quite within the realm of possibility that the soldiers did stray into Serbian territory, and the reverse is quite easy to believe, that Serb soldiers inadvertently strayed into Macedonian territory.
Is it true, we've heard reports that this area of Macedonia is actually primarily Serb, just as Kosovo is primarily Albanian?
That's not exactly true. There are large pockets of ethnic Serbs in Macedonia, in the area around Kumanovo, near where the soldiers were captured. But I would say even among the ethnic Macedonian population, there's a very strong pro-Serb sympathy in that part of Macedonia, partly because people have relatives in Serbia proper, partly because people identify with the Serbs, partly because of prejudice against local Albanians in Macedonia, and also people feel that if there are Serb reprisals against the NATO attacks, that these people along the border will bear the brunt of that. So there's not only pro-Serb sentiment, but resentment of NATO and especially of the United States.
And very briefly, could you update us on whether or not aid is reaching the refugees?
Aid is pouring in, but the refugees are pouring in faster. There are thousands and thousands coming over now, and the aid agencies are really swamped, as you can imagine. They're doing their best in addition to local charities, but it's really not enough to deal with the flood of refugees we've been seeing.
Thank you, Clay.
Western officials are reportedly considering plans to escort the ethnic Albanians back into Kosovo. The New York Times says NATO troops would lead the refugees home only after Serb forces have been defeated by the bombing campaign. While the bombing continues, though, humanitarian efforts are in high gear. Here's ABC's John McKenzie.
In Philadelphia, a Quaker organization assembling relief kits for Kosovo's refugees. 7,000 kits in all. Each includes a blanket, toothbrush, aspirin, diapers, and a child's toy.
We try to do something that's basic, that will give people hope.
In Kansas City, volunteers collect 200,000 pounds of clothes, 3 times more than expected. On a larger scale, the relief organization AmeriCares airlifting antibiotics and nutritional products to the refugees. The French flying in tons of food and medical supplies. The Italians creating a flotilla of ships to bring in cranes and a mobile hospital. Before the NATO bombing began, relief agencies had stockpiled food and supplies in the area. They were also well-staffed. At least 5 different UN agencies and about 60 private relief groups are already in place. When refugees arrive across the border, many are registered and given supplies. Then, instead of staying in these camps, they are driven to private homes. In the past week, at least 160,000 people have been accommodated this way. Officials say this current relief operation appears to be under control, but they warn the situation is extremely fragile and could change at any moment. It all depends now on how many more refugees arrive and how long they stay. John McKenzie, ABC News, New York.
Now we take a brief look at the weather. Spring has not yet sprung in much of the country. More heavy wet snow from the northern Great Lakes to the central Rockies. That same area will see frigid temperatures, but readings around the rest of the country will be mostly mild. Here's the National Temperature Index and international forecast as we look in on an Easter procession in Spain.
World News Now weather, brought to you by the Wall Street Journal.